What's up, metal and heavy music fans? Today we have a review of CONVERGE and their new album Bloodmoon via Epitaph Records. If you need an introduction to CONVERGE, you've somehow missed out on one of the major forerunners of the 90s metalcore sound. But what's more interesting about Bloodmoon is that it scarcely resembles anything from CONVERGE's prior discography, representing instead a fully integrated collaboration with Chelsea Wolfe and Ben Kissholm, and Stephen Brodsky of Cave In and Mutoid Man. It cuts through flesh and bone. We raise the curtain with the eerie, partially backtracked vocals of Bloodmoon, which along with the forest setting of the video gives the whole thing a very Twin Peaks vibe. Wolfe makes her first appearance here with a disconcerting tone, more of one casting some dark spell or calling sailing ships to disaster with a siren song. But this track also has some of the few more overtly CONVERGE-sounding elements as Jacob and the gang suddenly tear forth with a discordant, arrhythmic cacophony that rivals even their best material in its violence, but without sacrificing an ounce of the chilling atmosphere in the process. Honestly, I could do an entire video on this track alone, and side note, Chelsea's howls on the final third are arguably even more terrifying than Jacob's. Viscera of Men teases us in its first few seconds with a pummeling D-beat, gang vocals, and lightning fast pace akin to similar moments found on Axe to Fall and All We Love We Leave Behind. But it's all a ruse, giving way to another sludgy, doomy trudge through the abyss. One complete with many turns through dark corridors and keeping the Lynch comparisons going strong with a very subtle saxophone setting up the final plunge into the great unknown. Coil then gives us our first big dose of strings, providing the lush backdrop for a very Silent Hill music box sounding acoustic guitar, rumbling bass, and wispy, delicate, clean vocals like spirits taking turns whispering in each ear. But when the tension finally breaks, just know that you'll feel it. Flower Moon alternatively goes for a more bluesy, dirtbag riff that sounds like pure Kurt to me, with its melody matched by the grooving, grumbling bass and what sounds like a xylophone. This song is a perfect example of repetition used effectively, creating a hypnotic trance with an air of mystique and black magic. Tongues Playing Dead brings us back to the more traditional CONVERGE territory once again, with a touch of botch for good measure. Driven by Ballu's massive waves of head bob-inducing noodling guitar and Jacob Bannon's trademark dying bird screams. Before setting into a Deftonesy distorted bass groove, soon joined with pounding cascades of drums and eerie understated vocals punctuated by sudden blasts of sickening, churning power chords. Lord of Liars then takes hold with an infectiously syncopated hook with all of its 90s era helmet energy offset by more of Chelsea's saccharine yet insidious singing. This later devolving into a cyclone of technically inclined the Dillinger Escape Plan riffs and drumming, joining the worlds of jazz, noise, and mathcore for an impressively unsettling display of controlled chaos. At this point in the record, things start to slow down with Failure Forever for what feels like a continuation of the ideas presented on Cave In's Final Transmission. It's a drifting dreamscape of the same melodic, grungy vibes I got way back when listening to Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, but with Brodsky's anthemic singing occasionally offset by more of Bannon's vitriolic rage. But Scorpion's Sting takes things down yet another notch with a simple yet misery-soaked picking of the guitar that would be right at home in a lonely western saloon. Chelsea's crooning like a desperate girl in a one-horse town just trying to make ends meet. It's the type of song I'd expect to hear in a Quentin Tarantino film like Kill Bill or Django Unchained as the title card cues up the next chapter. And as the squealing tones of the additional wind and stringed instruments take hold, I'm nearly driven to tears by the suffocating weight of it all. There's a pretty wicked solo on this one too, reminiscent of Tom Morello's work with Audioslave. And we still haven't reached the bottom of this deep well of sorrow, not by a long shot. Damon sees the entire cast back again, layering their various expressions of intense malaise like the darkest levels of hell. Lyrics like bones cut from their bodies cause discomfort, only further accented by occasional breaks in the time signature from Baloo and Kohler. All of this culminating in the extremely powerful Crimson Stone with its pounding floor tom, twinkling guitars, and heart-pulling strings to complement the absolutely soul-crushing duet of Wolf and Brodsky like yearning voices calling to one another from an intraversible expanse. Please play this song while they're lowering my lifeless shell of a body into the cold, unforgiving ground. And then cap it all off with more of those western tones on Blood Dawn, which almost feels like a reprise of Scorpion's Sting, but with a more bitter sense of finality in its haunting, even ghostly singing, as if truly from beyond the grave. Getting some Tom York energy on this one towards the end. So when it all comes down to it, Bloodmoon is definitely not your standard Converge fare by a long shot. In fact, at times I listen to this and find myself feeling like they should have made it under a different name entirely. But do not mistake that in saying that this is bad by any means. In fact, it's easily their most ambitious and risk-taking release to date. I just don't even know where to begin ranking it in their discography when making comparisons to any other record is comparing apples and oranges. But turning to my scales, I give Bloodmoon a 9 for enjoyability. It's definitely a grower, one that intrigued me from the beginning, but took me at least 2 listens to even begin deciding whether I even liked it or not. I'm still uncertain of how much I'll re-listen to this compared to the band's more direct and accessible material, but we'll just have to see. I give it a 9 for musicianship. What Bloodmoon lacks in the technical aspect of Converge's other works, it more than makes up for in dynamic songwriting and arrangement. These are some truly engrossing and at times emotionally overpowering tracks. And I give it a 9 for innovation. All of these elements are pieces of things I have heard before from other artists, but rarely together in one place, and once more, never from Converge as a band. So 9s across the board and an A- for Converge and Company with Bloodmoon. Check out this tier list for my thoughts on the entire Converge discography, and check out this video for more bands with a similar sound as Converge. And let me know down in the comments what you thought of this album, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.